Once upon a time, in a land where the sun god Ra clocked in daily like a celestial office worker, the people of Egypt had one priority above all: smelling fabulous. Not just, I dabbed some cologne before brunch fabulous. More like, I anointed my wig with sacred lotus oil while summoning the gods fabulous. Perfume wasn't just a luxury, it was a lifestyle, a spiritual calling, a social flex, a medical remedy, a romantic gesture, a funeral essential, and yes, even a political statement. If you didn't smell like cinnamon and crushed lilies, were you even alive? So, grab your scented oils, tuck yourself into your linen sheets, and prepare to drift off to the soothing scent of ancient drama. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you be watching from, whether it's your bed in London, your couch in Cairo, or a sarcophagus in suburbia. I'm not judging. Long before alarm clocks, toothpaste, or TikTok, the ancient Egyptians woke up to the scent of sacred oils wafting through the air like divine whispers. The Nile shimmered under the early sun, and somewhere in a temple, a priest was already grinding cinnamon bark like his life depended on it. Spoiler, it kind of did. You see, in Egypt, smelling good wasn't optional. It was a spiritual obligation. The gods didn't just want your prayers. They wanted your aromatic presence. If you showed up to a ritual smelling like yesterday's camel ride, you might as well have stayed home. Enter Nefertum, the god of perfume and healing. Picture this: a radiant deity with a lotus flower growing out of his head like a divine air freshener. Nefertum wasn't just a vibe. He was the entire, scented mood board of ancient spirituality. Egyptians believed he emerged from the first lotus that bloomed at the dawn of creation, releasing a fragrance so powerful it woke the sun god Ra from his cosmic nap. So yes, perfume literally helped start the universe. No pressure. Temples across Egypt were drenched in scent. Priests burned frankincense in the morning, myrrh at noon, and kaifi at night, a blend so complex it made modern colognes look like sad body spray. Kaifi had honey, wine, raisins, cinnamon, juniper, and more, all mashed together like a sleepy time smoothie for the soul. And it wasn't just the gods who demanded fragrance. Pharaohs, nobles, and even scribes with questionable hygiene wore scented oils like status badges. If your wig didn't glisten with lotus oil, were you even trying? But here's the twist. Egyptians didn't just wear perfume. They believed it had power. Healing power, protective power, romantic power. One whiff of the right blend and boom, you're cured, blessed, and possibly married. So next time you dab on a little cologne before bed, remember, you're participating in a tradition older than pyramids, older than hieroglyphs, older than your Wi-Fi router, before Chanel No. 5, before Axe body spray, before that one friend who bathes in vanilla mist. There was Nefertum, the OG fragrance icon, the ancient Egyptian god of perfume, healing, and all things that smelled better than camel breath. Now, Nefertum wasn't your average deity. He didn't throw lightning bolts or demand sacrifices. No, he bloomed, literally. His head was a lotus flower, which is either deeply symbolic or just a bold fashion choice. Egyptians believed he emerged from the first lotus that bloomed at the dawn of creation, releasing a scent so divine it woke the sun god Ra from his cosmic nap. So, yes, the universe began with a sniff. Nefertum was the son of Ptah, the god of craftsmen, and Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war, which means he was basically the love child of a blacksmith and a battle cat, but somehow ended up as the patron of perfume. Talk about breaking family tradition. People worshipped Nefertum, not with chants or sacrifices, but with scents. They burned incense, anointed statues, and dabbed oils on their wrists like ancient influencers, doing scent of the day. His temples smelled like a spa, a bakery, and a forest all rolled into one. And here's the sleepy twist. Nefertum wasn't just about smelling good. He was about feeling good. Egyptians believed his fragrances could heal headaches, calm anxiety, and even ward off evil spirits. Basically, he was the ancient version of aromatherapy, minus the overpriced diffuser. In fact, one ancient text describes Nefertum as he who makes the world sweet, which sounds like a perfume slogan, but was actually a spiritual truth. If your life stank, literally or metaphorically, you turned to Nefertum. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine a gentle breeze carrying the scent of lotus and myrrh. Picture Nefertum blooming beside your pillow, whispering sweet dreams in floral tones. And if you're still awake, if you ever wandered into an ancient Egyptian temple expecting silence and solemnity, you'd be half right. Sure, there were chants, golden statues, and priests who hadn't blinked in 3 days. But the real star of the show? The smell. Temples in Egypt weren't just places of worship. They were fragrance factories. The air was thick with incense, oils, and the occasional whiff of roasted goose from a nearby offering. It was like walking into a spa run by gods with very specific scent preferences. Every temple had its own aromatic schedule. Morning, burn frankincense to wake up the gods. Noon, light up myrrh to keep them alert. Evening, unleash the mighty Kifi, a blend so complex it required a recipe longer than most cookbooks. Kifi included honey, wine, raisins, cinnamon, juniper, and possibly the tears of a very tired priest. But this wasn't just about smelling nice. Egyptians believed that scent was a bridge to the divine. The rising smoke of incense carried prayers upward, like spiritual Wi-Fi. If your temple didn't smell like heaven, your gods might not even show up. And nobody wants to be ghosted by Ra. Priests were trained in the art of scent. They didn't just toss herbs into a fire and hope for the best. They measured, mixed, and chanted over their blends, like perfumers, with PhDs in divine chemistry. Some temples even had perfume labs, where sacred oils were brewed in alabaster jars under moonlight. Very aesthetic, very Instagrammable, if Instagram had existed in 1500 BCE. And here's a sleepy little fact. The scent of Kifi was believed to induce dreams, relieve anxiety, and cleanse the soul. So yes, temples were basically ancient wellness retreats with better architecture and fewer influencers. So tonight, as you drift off, imagine lying on a cool stone floor, surrounded by flickering torches and the scent of cinnamon and wine swirling through the air. A priest hums softly, a lotus blooms nearby, and somewhere, Nefertum nods in approval. If ancient Egypt had a signature bedtime scent, it was Kifi, not just a perfume, not just incense. Kifi was the OG sleep potion, the ancient equivalent of lavender pillow spray, except it came with wine, raisins, and a side of spiritual enlightenment. Kifi wasn't made by tossing herbs into a fire and hoping for the best. Oh no, it was a ritual, a sacred recipe passed down through generations of priests who probably had better noses than most sommeliers. The ingredients list read like a mystical grocery haul. Honey for sweetness and stickiness, Wine, because even the gods liked a little buzz. Raisins. Yes, really. Frankincense, myrrh, juniper, cinnamon, cardamom, and mint. Possibly a dash of mystery resin that no one could identify, but everyone agreed smelled divine. The process of making kai-fi took days. First, the ingredients were ground, soaked, and sung to. Yes, sung to. Because apparently, chanting over your incense made it more spiritually potent. Or maybe the priests just liked karaoke. Once prepared, kaifi was burned in temples at night. The smoke curled through the air like a sleepy serpent, wrapping worshippers in a warm, fragrant hug. It was said to calm the mind, ease breathing, and induce vivid dreams, some of which involved flying boats, talking cats, and gods who gave unsolicited life advice. But kaifi wasn't just for temples. Wealthy Egyptians kept it at home, lighting it before bed like ancient influencers setting the mood. Some even used it as mouthwash, which sounds questionable, but was apparently a thing. Imagine waking up with cinnamon breath and divine favor. Win-win. And here's the dreamy twist. Kaifi was believed to cleanse the soul. Not just the body, not just the room, your actual soul. So, if you'd had a rough day, maybe you insulted a priest, tripped over a sphinx, or forgot to feed your sacred ibis, kaifi was your spiritual reset button. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine the soft glow of oil lamps, the gentle hum of temple chants, and the sweet spicy scent of kifi drifting through the air. Let it wrap around you like a linen blanket woven by moonlight. In ancient Egypt, smelling good wasn't just about personal hygiene. It was about domination. If you walked into a room and didn't smell like a divine bouquet of cinnamon, lotus, and crushed dreams, were you even a pharaoh? Perfume was a status symbol, a political tool, and occasionally a weapon of seduction. Pharaohs didn't just wear scent, they commanded it. Their bodies were anointed with sacred oils, their clothes soaked in fragrance, and their tombs packed with enough incense to fumigate a small kingdom. Take Queen Hatshepsut, for example. She wasn't just a ruler. She was a walking perfume ad. She famously sent expeditions to the land of Punt, which sounds like a football strategy but was actually a real place, to bring back myrrh trees. Not just myrrh, the whole tree. Because when you're queen, you don't settle for travel size. And then there's Cleopatra, who didn't just wear perfume, she weaponized it. Legend says she soaked the sails of her ship in fragrance so that Mark Antony could smell her coming from miles away. That's not just dramatic, that's olfactory warfare. Even in diplomacy, perfume played a role. Gifting scented oils was like saying, I respect you, and also, you smell like a swamp. It was a subtle flex, a fragrant handshake, a way to say, let's be allies, and let's not stink while we do it. But here's the sleepy twist. Perfume wasn't just for rulers. Even scribes, merchants, and temple workers used scent to assert their place in society. The richer the blend, the higher your status. If your oil had lotus, cinnamon, and frankincense, you were basically royalty. If it smelled like goat and regret, well, better luck next dynasty. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself as a pharaoh, reclining on a golden couch, servants gently anointing your feet with sacred oils, while diplomats wait outside, nervously sniffing their sleeves. You raise a perfumed eyebrow. You are power. You are fragrance. You are slightly sleepy. In ancient Egypt, hair was complicated. Between the heat, the sand, and the occasional lice infestation, most people, especially the elite, just said, "You know what? Let's go bald." But they didn't stop there. They went full glam with wigs. And not just any wigs, perfumed wigs. Imagine waking up, shaving your head, and then choosing from your collection of scented hair pieces, one for temple visits, one for banquets, one for intimidating your enemies, with the smell of crushed lotus and quiet judgment. These wigs were made from human hair, wool, or plant fibers, and styled with more drama than a soap opera. Braids, curls, layers. It was like ancient Vogue, but with more incense. And the pièce de résistance. Perfumed cones. Yes, cones. Egyptians wore wax cones infused with scented oils on top of their wigs. As the day went on, the cone would melt, releasing fragrance that dripped down their hair like a slow-motion spa treatment. It was part beauty, part ritual, and part, "I hope this doesn't ruin my outfit." The most popular scents? Lotus, myrrh, cinnamon, and balanite's oil, which sounds like something your cousin got prescribed for a rash, but was actually quite luxurious. And here's the sleepy twist. These wigs weren't just for parties. They were worn during religious ceremonies, funerals, and even bedtime rituals. Some Egyptians believed that sleeping with a perfumed wig helped them dream of the gods. Others just liked smelling good while they snored. Even children had mini wigs. Imagine a toddler waddling around with a tiny scented braid, smelling like a cinnamon bun and divine favor. Adorable, slightly sticky, very on brand. So tonight, as you lie in bed, picture yourself reclining on a linen pillow, your head freshly shaved, your favorite wig perched perfectly, and a wax cone slowly melting into a fragrant cascade of dreams. You are elegance, you are aroma, you are slightly sleepy, and very moisturized. If ancient Egypt had a fragrance icon who could launch 1,000 ships and maybe a few awkward love triangles, it was Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile, Empress of eyeliner, and most importantly, master of perfume-based diplomacy. Cleopatra didn't just wear perfume, she weaponized it. Legend says she soaked the sails of her royal barge in fragrant oils so that Mark Antony could smell her arrival before he saw her. That's not just dramatic, that's olfactory warfare. Imagine being so scented that your crush gets emotionally compromised from 2 miles away. Her favorite blends? Historians believe she adored lotus, myrrh, rose, and jasmine. Basically, everything that smells like a romantic garden and a tax bracket you'll never reach. She even had her own perfume factory in Alexandria, where oils were blended with the precision of a love-struck chemist. But Cleopatra's scent game wasn't just about romance. It was political theater. When she met Julius Caesar, she didn't just show up. She arrived rolled in a carpet, perfumed to perfection, and ready to negotiate. That's not just a flex. That's a scented power move. Even her bath rituals were legendary. She bathed in milk and honey, with oils so rich they probably had their own bank accounts. Her chambers were filled with incense, her clothes soaked in fragrance, and her presence so aromatic that people probably forgot what she said and just remembered how she smelled. And here's the sleepy twist. Cleopatra believed that scent could influence emotion, alter perception, and create memory. She used perfume not just to charm lovers, but to shape history. Her legacy isn't just written in scrolls. It has floating in the air like a floral whisper. So, tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself drifting down the Nile on a perfumed barge, moonlight glinting off the water, lotus blossoms blooming in your hair, and the scent of jasmine trailing behind you like a royal decree. If you think modern perfume bottles are fancy, crystal stoppers, gold trim, names like Eau de Existential Crisis, then buckle up, because the ancient Egyptians were doing luxury packaging before it was cool. They didn't just store perfume in clay pots and call it a day. Oh no, they used alabaster, faience, blue glass, and even gold to house their sacred scents. These containers weren't just functional, they were works of art. Some were shaped like animals, others like gods, and a few looked suspiciously like things you'd find in a high-end boutique in Paris. Alabaster was the go-to material. Smooth, cool, and slightly translucent, it kept oils fresh and made you look like you had serious taste. If you pulled out an alabaster jar at a banquet, people didn't just admire your scent, they admired your status. It was the ancient equivalent of pulling out a designer handbag and casually mentioning it, see vintage. And let's talk faience, a glazed ceramic that shimmered like turquoise dreams. Egyptians believed the color blue symbolized rebirth and protection. So storing perfume in blue faience wasn't just stylish, it was spiritual. Your scent was literally blessed. But here's the sleepy twist. These containers were often buried with their owners. That's right, your perfume bottle followed you into the afterlife, because smelling good wasn't just for the living, it was for eternity. Imagine drifting through the field of reeds with your favorite scent trailing behind you like a divine cloud of sandalwood and smugness. Some jars even had inscriptions, prayers, names, or instructions like, for use on Tuesdays. Okay, maybe not that last one. And if you were really fancy, your perfume came with a custom applicator, a tiny spoon or wand carved from ivory or bone. Because dabbing sacred oil with your finger? So peasant. So tonight, as you lie in bed, picture yourself opening a cool alabaster jar, the scent of lotus rising like a sleepy sigh. You dab a drop behind your ear, recline on your linen pillow, and drift into dreams wrapped in ancient luxury. In the bustling heart of ancient Egyptian cities, somewhere between the linen merchants and the papyrus scribes, there existed a sacred profession, the perfumer. These folks didn't just dabble in oils, they crafted olfactory magic that could soothe gods, seduce royalty, and make your neighbor jealous at funerals. Becoming a perfumer wasn't easy. You needed a nose sharper than a falcon's eyesight, a steady hand for mixing delicate ingredients, and the patience of someone who's been stuck in a sandstorm with a camel named Kevin. Perfumers worked in fragrance workshops, often attached to temples or royal estates. These weren't your average back alley labs. They were aromatic sanctuaries, filled with jars of myrrh, cinnamon, lotus petals, and resins that smelled like heaven's pantry. They used tools like mortar and pestle for grinding herbs and spices, alabaster jars for storing oils, copper cauldrons for heating and infusing blends, and occasionally tiny spoons that looked suspiciously like they belonged in a dollhouse tea set. Recipes were guarded like state secrets, passed down from master to apprentice, often written in cryptic hieroglyphs that said things like, add 3 drops of the sacred oil, but only on Tuesdays, when the moon is feeling flirty. And here's the sleepy twist. Perfumers weren't just artisans, they were healers. Their blends were used to treat headaches, anxiety, and spiritual funk. If your aura was off, your priest didn't send you to therapy. he sent you to the perfumer. Some perfumers even became celebrities, their names etched into temple walls, their blends requested by pharaohs, and their funerals smelling better than most weddings. If you could make a scent that pleased both Ra and Cleopatra, you were basically ancient Beyoncé. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself in a quiet workshop, moonlight spilling across jars of fragrant oils. You grind cinnamon bark, hum a sleepy chant, and mix a potion that smells like dreams and destiny. You are the nose. You are the magic. You are slightly sleepy and very aromatic. In ancient Egypt, death wasn't the end. It was just a very long nap with excellent skincare. And if you thought perfume was only for the living, think again. Mummies were anointed, embalmed, and perfumed like they were heading to a red carpet event in the afterlife. The embalming process was basically a spa day that lasted 70 days. First, the body was washed with palm wine, because even corpses deserved a toast. Then stuffed with resins, myrrh, and fragrant oils to keep things fresh. Think of it as the ancient version of preserve and slay. Why all the scent? Egyptians believed that smell connected the soul to the divine. If your body reeked of decay, the gods might swipe left. But if you smelled like cinnamon and lotus, you were basically guaranteed a VIP pass to the afterlife. Even the wrappings were perfumed. Linen strips soaked in oils were layered like a scented burrito. Some mummies were buried with perfume jars, just in case they needed a touch-up in eternity. Others had incense cones tucked into their tombs, ready to burn at the slightest whiff of spiritual awkwardness. And here's the sleepy twist. The scent wasn't just for the dead. It was for the living, too. Funerals were full of fragrance, incense burning, oils flowing, mourners dabbing their eyes with perfumed cloths while secretly admiring each other's scent game. It was grief, but make it glamorous. Even tomb inscriptions mentioned perfume. One read, "May your scent be pleasing to the gods." Another said, "He who smells sweet shall rise again," which sounds like a motivational poster in a very fancy mortuary. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself wrapped in linen, tucked into a golden sarcophagus, the scent of myrrh and frankincense swirling around you like a lullaby. You're not just resting, you're eternally fabulous. Picture this, the sun rising over Thebes, merchants setting up their stalls, and the scent of myrrh, lotus, and cinnamon swirling through the air like a divine breakfast blend. You're not just shopping, you're entering a fragrance festival where every sniff tells a story. The perfume market wasn't just a place to buy oils. It was a social hub, a status arena, and occasionally a passive-aggressive competition between neighbors. If your blend didn't include imported frankincense from Punt or rare resins from Nubia, you might as well be wearing eau de disappointment. Merchants shouted things like, "Fresh kaifi," guaranteed to make your dreams smell better. Lotus oil, fit for a pharaoh, priced for a scribe. Buy 2 jars, get a free insult from my mother-in-law. And yes, haggling was an art form. You didn't just ask for a discount. You performed a dramatic monologue about your tragic financial situation, your sacred cat's medical bills, and your cousin's failed pyramid startup. If the merchant cried from laughter, you got 10% off. The most prized ingredients? Myrrh, smoky, sacred, and slightly mysterious. Frankincense, divine, uplifting, and probably smuggled in someone's sandal. Cinnamon, spicy, rare, and worth more than some people's entire wardrobe. Lotus, floral, dreamy, and the ancient equivalent of soft glam. And here cast the sleepy twist. The market wasn't just about buying scent, it was about sharing stories. People swapped recipes, debated the best blends, and occasionally judged each other's choices with eyebrow raises so sharp they could slice papyrus. Even the containers were part of the show. Merchants displayed oils in alabaster jars, blue faience bottles, and glass flasks that sparkled in the sun like ancient disco balls. If your bottle didn't match your outfit, were you even trying? So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself wandering through a sun-drenched market, the scent of cinnamon and honey drifting past your nose, a merchant handing you a tiny vial with a wink and a whispered, "This one's for dreams." You smile, tuck it into your robe, and drift into sleep, smelling like a legend. In ancient Egypt, if you wanted to win someone's heart, you didn't just write poetry or offer a bouquet of papyrus. You smelled amazing. Perfume wasn't just a beauty ritual. It was a romantic strategy, a seduction spell, and occasionally, a very fragrant mistake. Egyptians believed that scent could stir emotion, ignite passion, and make you look 20% more attractive in moonlight. Love potions weren't just mythical. They were real blends, crafted with oils, herbs, and a dash of "please notice me." Popular ingredients in romantic perfumes included lotus, the ancient symbol of rebirth and I'm emotionally available; cinnamon, spicy, warm, and slightly flirtatious; myrrh, smoky, mysterious, and perfect for dramatic entrances; henna, and cardamom, for those who wanted to smell like a romantic poem and a snack. And yes, there were pickup lines. One ancient love poem reads, "Your scent is in my bones, like Kaifi in the temple. May I inhale you forever," which is either deeply romantic or a little creepy, depending on how close they were standing. Perfume was also used in courtship rituals. Lovers exchanged scented cloths, anointed each other with oils, and sometimes wore matching fragrances like ancient couples' cologne. If your crush smelled like lotus and you smelled like lotus, it was basically a relationship. Even love spells involved perfume. Priests would chant over oils, infuse them with intention, and instruct you to dab them on your wrists before approaching your beloved. If they swooned, great. If they sneezed, well, maybe try a different blend. And here, that's the sleepy twist. Romantic perfumes weren't tea just for the young and flirty. Married couples used them to rekindle affection, celebrate anniversaries, and occasionally apologize for forgetting to feed the sacred cat. Scent was a language, one that said, "I love you, I miss you, and please don't curse me." So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself in a candlelit chamber, the scent of cinnamon and lotus drifting through the air, your beloved reclining nearby, both of you wrapped in linen and longing. You smile, dab a drop of oil behind your ear, and let the fragrance do the talking. In ancient Egypt, you didn't need a business card to show off your status. You just needed to smell expensive. Perfume was the ultimate social signal. If your scent said, "I bathed in lotus oil and confidence," people listened. If it said, "I ran out of cinnamon and dignity," well, better luck next dynasty. From pharaohs to priests to merchants with suspiciously shiny wigs, everyone knew that fragrance meant prestige. The richer the blend, the higher your rank. If your oil contained myrrh, frankincense, and blue lotus, you were basically royalty. If it smelled like last week's goose stew, you were probably still figuring things out. Even clothing was scented. Linen robes were soaked in oils, then dried in the sun until they radiated luxury, walking into a banquet smelling like sandalwood and smugness. That was the ancient version of arriving in a designer suit with a slow-motion wind machine. And let's not forget the perfume layering game. Egyptians didn't just wear one scent. They layered morning oils for freshness, midday incense for drama, and evening blends for seduction. If your scent changed with the sun, you were clearly someone who had their life and their linen together. Perfume also played a role in public ceremonies. Priests anointed statues with sacred oils. Pharaohs were bathed in fragrance before major announcements, and even scribes dabbed a little kaifi before presenting tax documents. Because nothing says, "I'm serious about grain quotas," like smelling like cinnamon and destiny. And here as the sleepy twist, scent wasn't just about showing off. It was about belonging. Wearing the right fragrance connected you to your community, your temple, and your gods. It was a silent language, a scented handshake, a way to say, "I'm part of something bigger, and I smell amazing." So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself walking through a palace courtyard, your robes rustling, your scent trailing behind you like a royal decree. Servants nod, nobles whisper, even the sacred cats pause to admire your aromatic aura. You are elegance, you are status, you are slightly sleepy and very well scented. If you think your morning routine is intense, maybe a splash of cologne and a half-hearted comb through, then let me introduce you to the Pharaoh S fragrance ritual, which was basically a Broadway production starring scented oils and divine confidence. The Pharaoh didn't just wake up. He emerged from silk sheets perfumed with lotus oil into a chamber filled with incense smoke, greeted by attendants holding alabaster jars like they were sacred relics. His wardrobe wasn't just about fashion. It was about olfactory dominance. Let's break it down. The linen situation. Egyptian linen was already soft and breezy, but pharaohs took it up a notch. Their robes were soaked in oils like myrrh and cinnamon, sun-dried to lock in the scent, stored with incense cones so they smelled like a temple, and a luxury spa had a baby. If your robe didn't smell like divine approval, you weren't ready for the throne. The oil ritual before dressing, pharaohs were anointed with oils, not dabbed, anointed, like a roast chicken, but regal. Popular blends included Susanum, lily, myrrh, cinnamon, Mendesian, myrrh, cassia, and resins, cyprinum, henna, cardamom, cinnamon, myrrh. Each oil had a purpose, some for protection, some for seduction, and some just because smelling like a cinnamon cloud made you feel unstoppable. Accessories, but make them scented. Even jewelry was perfumed. Necklaces were stored with scented cloths, and wigs, yes, wigs again, were pre-treated with lotus oil and topped with melting wax cones. The pharaoh didn't just wear gold, he wore aroma. And here's the sleepy twist. The entire wardrobe ritual was spiritual. Scent connected the pharaoh to the gods, reinforced his divine status, and made sure he didn't smell like yesterday's pyramid construction site. It was fashion, fragrance, and faith, all rolled into one very luxurious morning routine. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself in a sunlit chamber, attendants gently anointing your shoulders, linen robes rustling with every fragrant step, and the scent of cinnamon and lotus trailing behind you like a royal decree. You are elegance, you are aroma, you are slightly sleepy and extremely moisturized. Long before cough syrup, essential oils, or that one ant who swears by garlic foot rubs, the ancient Egyptians were using perfume as medicine. And not just, this smells nice medicine. We're talking full-on fragrant pharmacology. Their doctors, called SW, pronounced like someone sneezing politely, believed that scent could balance the body's energies, calm the mind, and ward off evil spirits. If you had a headache, they didn't hand you a tablet. They handed you a jar of myrrh-infused oil and told you to rub it on your temples while chanting something vaguely mystical. Popular medicinal scents included frankincense, anti-inflammatory, spiritually uplifting, and smells like a wise decision, myrrh, antiseptic, soothing, and perfect for when you've been emotionally wounded by a sacred ibis, cinnamon, warming, energizing, and slightly spicy, like a motivational speech in oil form, mint and juniper, used for digestion, headaches, and making your breath smell like divine approval. Perfume was also used in mental health rituals. Feeling anxious? Burn some kai-fi. Feeling sad? Dab some lotus oil. Feeling cursed by a jealous neighbor? Bathe in sandalwood and reconsider your friendships. Even temples doubled as healing centers, where priests acted as both spiritual guides and part-time aromatherapists. They'd mix oils, chant over them, and apply them with the precision of someone who read too many scrolls and isn't too afraid to use them. And here's the sleepy twist. Egyptians believed that scent could heal the soul, not just the body. If your aura was off, your dreams were weird, or your cat was giving you judgmental looks, a good perfume could realign your cosmic vibes. It was like therapy, but with fewer awkward silences and more cinnamon. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself in a quiet chamber, moonlight spilling across alabaster jars, a priest gently anointing your forehead with lotus oil, and the scent of healing drifting through the air like a lullaby. You are calm. You are whole. You are slightly sleepy and spiritually moisturized. In ancient Egypt, temples didn't just worship gods. They competed, not with swords or chariot races, but with scent. That's right. Welcome to the Incense Olympics, where priests flexed their fragrance skills like ancient perfumers on a reality show. Each temple had its own signature scent. Some went heavy on frankincense, others preferred myrrh, and a few got experimental with blends that smelled like divine pastries and spiritual enlightenment. The goal? To impress the gods and maybe out-scent the temple next door. The competitors, Temple of Karnak, known for its bold use of cinnamon and a secret resin that smelled like victory and mild intimidation. Temple of Luxor, famous for its dreamy kai-fi blend, rumored to induce visions of Ra doing interpretive dance. Temple of Isis, elegant, floral, and slightly smug about its imported lotus oil from a pond that only bloomed on Tuesdays. Priests took this seriously. They trained for years, memorized recipes, and guarded their incense formulas like they were the passwords to the afterlife. Some even wore scented robes to enhance the experience, because nothing says divine devotion like smelling like a cinnamon cloud with sandals. And yes, there were scandals. One temple was accused of watering down their myrrh. Another allegedly borrowed incense from Nubia without permission. The drama was thick, and so was the smoke. Judging was done by the high priest, who had the nose of a bloodhound and the patience of a librarian, the sacred cat, who sat on a cushion and blinked judgmentally, and occasionally Ra himself, who may or may not have sent signs via sunbeam placement. And here's the sleepy twist. The Incense Olympics weren't just about winning, they were about connection. Each puff of smoke was a prayer, a poem, a scented bridge between mortals and the divine. The competition was fierce, but the goal was always the same: to honor the gods with fragrance so pure it could make a statue weep. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself in a grand temple courtyard, incense swirling around you like a scented fog, priests chanting, sacred cats judging, and the scent of victory lingering in the air. You are a champion. You are a cloud. You are slightly sleepy and spiritually competitive. In ancient Egypt, perfume wasn't just a luxury, it was a business empire. And like any booming industry, it came with entrepreneurs, hype men, and the occasional overly enthusiastic cousin trying to sell you a starter kit. Perfume production was a multi-tiered operation. Farmers grew the herbs. Traders imported rare resins. Perfumers blended the oils, and merchants sold the final product with the flair of someone who has definitely rehearsed their sales pitch in front of a mirror. Some even claimed their oils could cure heartbreak, attract divine attention, make your neighbor jealous, and possibly help you pass your scribal exams. Results not guaranteed. It wasn't long before perfume guilds formed, groups of scent specialists who controlled recipes, pricing, and distribution. They were the ancient version of fragrance influencers, minus the hashtags and sponsored posts. If you wanted the good stuff, you had to know someone, or bribe someone, or marry someone with access to the secret cinnamon stash. And yes, there were marketing tactics. This oil was blessed by a priest and a cat, twice, imported from Punt, where even the trees smell like royalty. Buy one jar, get a scroll of compliments from strangers. Some merchants got creative. They hosted fragrance demonstrations, where you could sniff blends while listening to dramatic poetry. Others offered scent subscriptions, delivering fresh oils every lunar cycle. One ambitious seller even claimed his perfume could make you dream of Cleopatra. Spoiler, it mostly made people sneeze. And here's the sleepy twist. Despite the drama, the perfume trade was deeply respected. It funded temples, supported families, and kept the gods in a good mood. Scent wasn't just a product, it was a cultural currency, traded with reverence and a touch of theatrical flair. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself strolling through a bustling market, merchants calling out, jars glinting in the sun, and the scent of opportunity wafting through the air. You pause at a stall, sniff a blend, and smile. You are a customer. You are a connoisseur. You are slightly sleepy and economically fragrant. Not all heroes wore linen robes and wielded alabaster jars. Some sat hunched over wooden desks, surrounded by ink pots, papyrus rolls, and the lingering scent of lotus oil. Meet the scribe, the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a blogger, chemist, and part-time poet with a flair for fragrance. Scribes were responsible for recording everything: temple rituals, royal decrees, tax records, and most importantly, perfume recipes. These weren't just ingredient lists. They were scrolls of scented wisdom, passed down through generations, like sacred cookbooks, with a dash of drama. One famous recipe began with, "Grind the cinnamon with reverence, lest the gods frown upon your impatience," which is ancient Egyptian for "don't rush the spice." Scribes worked by moonlight, often in quiet chambers, filled with incense smoke and the soft rustle of papyrus. They dipped their reed pens into ink made from soot and honey, occasionally sneezing when the myrrh got too strong. Some wore scented cones to stay focused. Others just hoped the temple cat wouldn't knock over the oil jar again. And yes, mistakes happened. One sleepy scribe famously spilled kaifi oil on a scroll, smudging the instructions so badly that future perfumers had to guess whether it said add mint or summon Ra. The result? A blend that smelled like divine confusion and mild regret. But here's the sleepy twist. These scrolls weren't just technical manuals. They were poetic, filled with metaphors, like the scent shall rise like the breath of the gods, and let the oil dance upon the skin like sunlight on the Nile. Writing perfume recipes was an art, a devotion, and occasionally a very fragrant form of procrastination. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself as a sleepy scribe, ink-stained fingers, a scroll half-written, and the scent of cinnamon and lotus drifting through the air. You pause, yawn, and smile. The gods can wait. You are a writer. You are a dreamer. You are slightly sleepy and aromatically inspired. In ancient Egypt, death wasn't the end. It was a transition, a journey, a cosmic road trip to the field of reeds, where the linen was always fresh, the Nile flowed with grace, and the air smelled like divine approval. But to get there, you had to pack smart. And by smart, I mean scented. Perfume was considered essential cargo for the afterlife. Tombs were stocked with alabaster jars of myrrh, lotus-infused oils, kaifi incense cones, and occasionally a backup vial of cinnamon oil in case the gods were feeling spicy. Why all the fragrance? Egyptians believed that scent guided the soul, soothed the spirits, and made you more appealing to divine judges. If you showed up smelling like a swamp, you might get redirected to the less scenic part of eternity. But if you arrived smelling like sandalwood and serenity, you were golden. Even the Book of the Dead included references to perfume. One spell required the speaker to be anointed with the finest oil of myrrh before reciting it. Translation: don't try spiritual poetry unless you've moisturized. Some tombs had perfume chambers, filled with jars labeled things like for dreaming for protection, for impressing Osiris, for when you're feeling extra. And here, as the sleepy twist, scent wasn't just for the soul, it was for the memory. Families believed that the fragrance left behind in a tomb helped them feel connected to their loved ones. It was a scented thread between worlds, a whisper of presence, a reminder that love and lotus oil never truly fades. So tonight, as you lie in bed, imagine yourself stepping into the afterlife, your linen robes rustling, your scent trailing behind you like a celestial breeze. The gods nod, the sacred cats purr. You are ready. You are radiant. You are slightly sleepy and eternally fragrant. From the divine lotus bloom of Nefertum to Cleopatra's perfumed sails, from temple incense competitions to the sleepy scribe's scrolls, we've wandered through a world where fragrance was everything. It healed the sick, seduced the powerful, soothed the soul, and even escorted the dead into eternity. Perfume in ancient Egypt wasn't just a luxury, it was a language, a way to speak to gods without words, a way to flirt without awkward eye contact, a way to say, I exist and I smell like cinnamon and destiny. We've met priests who burned incense like Olympic athletes, pharaohs who wore fragrance like armor, and merchants who could sell you a jar of oil and a dream in the same breath. We've seen wigs melt with scented wax, scrolls stained with kyphi, and tombs packed with enough myrrh to make the afterlife smell like a five-star spa. And through it all, one truth lingered in the air, like a sacred mist. To smell divine was to live fully, to anoint your skin, your spirit, your story with scent was to honor the beauty of existence. So tonight, as the moon rises over London and the stars blink like sleepy gods, let the scent of ancient dreams wrap around you. Imagine the Nile glistening under starlight, the temples quiet, the incense curling upward like a lullaby. You are part of this story now, soft, fragrant, and timeless. Now close your eyes. Let the perfume of history drift through your dreams, and sleep like a pharaoh wrapped in lotus-scented linen. Good night.